We are now in the hottest point of the summer, August, when the air is thick, when the humidity is high, hiking is harder, carrying your backpack is harder, breathing can be harder because of the thickness and humidity in the air. So when we're planning for trips at this time of the year, it's always wise to find gear that can be used for more than just one purpose. So today, that's what we're talking about. What's going on, guys? John Kelly here. If you haven't already, make sure you subscribe to this channel and hit that notification bell so you find out anytime one of these videos drops. Today we're talking about multi-use gear. Gear that can be used for more than just one thing. Something that has multiple uses so that it allows us the opportunity to not bring as much gear with us when we go out on the trail. I'm gonna give you guys 6 items that you probably already have. Maybe one of them, well, one of them I guarantee you don't, but I'm gonna give you 6 pieces of gear that you can bring on a trip that will allow you the opportunity to have multiple uses for them and potentially not bring other items with you. So let's go ahead and get to the list. First up on the list is an item that is very common for most of us, and those are hiking poles. A lot of us take these solely for hiking. We use them to keep our knees and our ankles protected. They allow us to scale down and up hills just a touch better, and they make the hiking experience something we can typically experience for a little bit longer because they help with the longevity of your body when it comes to hiking. But these can be used for so much more than just hiking. As many of you already know, I am a hammock camper. It's my favorite way to go backpacking, and I like to set up my tarp in what is known as porch mode, where you take your 2 hiking poles, set them as high as they'll go, and attach them to the front ends of your tarp, allowing you to have this kind of porch area where you can sit underneath it during rainstorms, snow, sit in your chair, just relax. 3 or 4 people can typically sit under there with me, and it just kind of makes a nice little communal area. Setting up your poles for that is fantastic. Another great option for your poles is if you forget your poop trowel, which can be disastrous. The nice thing about your trekking poles is you can take the front end of your trekking pole, and it'll take a little bit more work, but you can dig out the ground to make your cat hole using a trekking pole instead of using a trowel. I wouldn't suggest this to be the plan because you're never gonna dig as good of a cat hole with this as you would with a trowel, but if your trowel happens to get left behind, you forgot it this trip, this can be an option for you. Another great option with trekking poles is if you're setting up a tent that has pullouts on the sides. You can set your trekking pole up beside your tent, tie off onto the trekking pole, and actually pull the walls of your tent up. It's a great option. A lot of people use sticks, but if you've already got trekking poles with you, that makes it very easy to set up. They're great for that. They're also fantastic using as tarp pullouts for the top of your hammock tarp. A lot of tarps have pullouts on the sides, and you can actually use your trekking pole to connect to those to give you a little bit more headspace on the inside of your backpacking tarp that you're using while hammock camping. Another great use for these is if you're trying to get ultralight and you want a sub 2-pound trekking pole tent. These suddenly become your tent poles, holding up either side of your tent. Trekking poles have a lot of great uses, and I found that I never go on trips without them, and I never just use them for one thing. Up next is this stuff right here. This is Tyvek. I've been using this particular section of Tyvek now for a little over 3.5 years. I've used it for multiple purposes. But one of the great things about Tyvek, it's very strong. It's also fairly waterproof. It's not completely waterproof, but at the end of the day, not a lot of water is getting through this. That's why they use this on houses to protect them against weather. It's also got a little bit of an insulating factor to it. So Tyvek is a great option for backpacking for a lot of reasons. One of the first reasons is to use this as a ground sheet for your tent. If you're worried about pointy rocks or sticks or things puncturing the bottom of your tent, having a ground sheet like this that you can put underneath your tent is going to prolong the life of it. Tyvek, like I said, is very strong, very durable, and I can attest to the fact that this stuff is fantastic. It also keeps water off the bottom of your tent. If there's rain, the rain will typically go underneath the Tyvek instead of underneath your tent, which is a huge plus when it comes to packing up at the end of the day. For me, I keep the Tyvek on the outside of my backpack, but you can use it on the inside of your backpack for a specific use. When I first started backpacking, I was tent camping, and this was my ground sheet, and I would use this to give me some rigidity inside of my backpack. I would fold this up in such a way where all of the dirt and everything would not be able to get out. I would fold it up in such a way so that that was all captured inside the Tyvek. It wouldn't get inside my backpack. Then I would take that piece and set that up against the area in my backpack that fits up against my back. I was carrying a ULA Ohm 2.0, and it has a soft foam that's in there, but a lot of times gear can shift, especially when you're new to backpacking. Gear can move around, you get those lumpy spots. This actually helped to protect my back from that inside of my backpack, giving a little more rigidity and also just allowing my pack to have a little bit more support from stuff pushing up against my back. Even with my hammock, I'm using this every single time I go out. When I show up to my campsite, before I set up my hammock, before I set up anything else, I pull out my ground sheet and I throw it on the ground so I can put all of my gear on it. You never know where you're camping. The ground may be really silty or sandy. There may just be a lot of dust on the ground. It may just be a mess, and you don't want that stuff in your gear. So I use my ground cloth on the ground to put my gear on so I can get everything figured out and set up for the night. Another great option for this is if a rainstorm hits out of nowhere, I've actually got grommets on the outside of this, and I use this as a tarp if needed. I can just pull out some real quick cordage, hang this up on a few trees, and you maybe use some trekking poles, and we have a dry place to sit when the weather gets crazy, especially if you're in situations where there's hail or anything like that. It's nice to have an option that can protect you from that stuff when you're out in the elements. Needless to say, I use Tyvek on every one of my trips. You can find this stuff at construction sites. If you can find the construction manager, you can talk to them and they'll usually give you the scraps that are left over because they're gonna just throw it away anyways. This stuff is fantastic for so many purposes, and it goes with me on every single trip. The next piece of gear is one you can't have yet, but in a couple weeks you can, and that is something called the Polar Jammer. This is simply an insulated tube with drawstrings on either end, literally. An insulated tube with drawstrings on either end. The initial purpose for this is to put on your belt when you're backpacking, your belt strap. And it allows you to put your hands in and keep them warm in colder weather. A lot of us don't like to wear gloves so much when we're hiking because our hands get all sweaty, and in the wintertime, sweat is just not fun. So being able to have something when you stop to put your hands in is really nice. But what I've found is there are so many more uses for this. First off, it is a nylon outer shell that's on these with a ClimaShield synthetic insulation on the inside. What's great about the insulation is because it's synthetic, when you get your hands in there, all the oils and stuff from your hands get in here, it will keep its loft longer than down will. It is a touch heavier than down, but it still only weighs about 2.5 ounces. These things are super lightweight. What I've found with these, however, is that you can use them for so many more things. I found that for me, being a hammock camper, this is the perfect size for a pillow. I've said it before on this channel, I don't like really thick pillows when I'm in my hammock. I want a pillow that's a little bit less loft because I don't want my head just kind of bending forward when I'm in my hammock. And I don't do a lot of side sleeping when I'm hammock camping. I tend to sleep on my back. So for me, a pillow that has some decent loft but not crazy loft is perfect for me. Also, with it being insulated means in the wintertime it's going to keep the back of my neck and my head pretty warm. Fantastic because with the drawstrings I can connect it to the back of my hammock, allowing it not to fall down to my butt when I get up to go to the bathroom or do anything else. Now maybe you're somebody who wants it to be a little more lofty. This thing is hollow in the middle. You can put clothing and other things in it, allowing that to loft up a little bit higher for you if that's what you want, so that it'll be more comfortable for you as a side sleeper. But it's very comfortable. It feels really great to sleep with. Another great option for this is if you're trying to keep water from freezing in the wintertime, you can actually put a couple water bottles inside of this and then just simply take the ends and tighten it up and keep those water bottles insulated, so the next morning when you get up, you don't have frozen water when you're trying to make your breakfast or a hot cup of coffee. This would also be great if you're trying to keep batteries or phones or whatever else warm in sub-freezing temperatures. Anybody who's been out in really, really cold weather knows batteries drain fast in the cold, and being able to keep them insulated is really nice. Being able to keep them in something that's just going to keep them warm out in that cold weather is going to allow a little more longevity of your different items that you have. One of the cool things with this that I found is you can actually set this up with a couple small carabiners and hang this on the ridgeline of your hammock, and with it hung up on the ridgeline of your hammock, you can use this as an insulated holder for your battery charger. You can put a water bottle in here, all kinds of things to keep warm in your hammock and yet still have it hanging on your ridgeline, which is a huge bonus and a really cool option for something like this. Needless to say, the Polar Jammer is just a really, really cool item. Something that I'm learning every day. There are more uses than I realize with this thing. My buddy Jeremy from All Things Outdoors is the guy who makes these. I'm going to leave a link to his Etsy channel below. Here in just a couple weeks, I believe that's going live, that these are going to go for sale. Definitely check out Jeremy's Etsy because this is an incredible item, but it's also going towards an incredible cause called Love Like Jonathan. Every year there are people that just don't have the means by which to enjoy the holidays and have a family meal together. The money's not there, things are tight. And every year Love Like Jonathan goes out and provides meals for people during the holiday season so that they can have the opportunity to really celebrate as a family. It's one of those really cool things that you can be a part of that is actually affecting people in an extremely positive way. So understand, when you're buying these, proceeds from these are actually going as a fundraiser towards Love Like Jonathan. These are $29. Most of that money is not going to Jeremy, who made these. He's actually donating that to the charity. So if you guys are interested in getting one of these, like I said, the link will be below. Check those out. This is a cool item. I can't wait to use this more and find out even more things that I can use this as. Up next is the Buff. That's right, the Buff. We all have these, or at least most of us do. These became very popular back in the late 90s, early 2000s when the show Survivor came out. Buffs were given to the members of every single tribe, and they were in their colors. And throughout the season, you would see these things used for so many things. Headbands, hats, bandanas. The women were using them as crop tops. I mean, it's crazy the uses that buffs have. For me personally, I love the buff as a neck gaiter, as something to keep off bugs in the sun. I also like to put it as a balaclava in the wintertime. When things just get really cold, being able to pull that over and cover up your face a little bit to keep all that cold wind and everything off of your face is fantastic. There are merino wool buffs that you can get that are awesome for that. Another great use for these is as a pot holder. I'm that guy that when I'm out backpacking, a lot of times I don't put the handles out on my pot, and I put it on the flame and I start boiling water, and then I realize halfway through I'm gonna burn my hands. It's nice to have this as a pot holder where I can grab around the outside of my pot and pour my water into whatever it is I'm cooking, whether it's a freeze-dried meal or anything else, or I'm making a cup of coffee. Having this as a pot holder is fantastic and has saved my backside more times than I like to admit. This is also great to wipe down your tarp in the morning. A lot of times you can wake up and there's condensation everywhere. Being able to just take this buff and wipe that down, it's awesome. There's two reasons why that's great too, because a lot of times in the summer you get really humid weather, and that's where you get a lot of condensation on things, where the ground is soaking wet and your tarp is soaking wet, and you can just wipe that all down. Well, what's great is as you start hiking, now you've got a nice cool wet buff that you can wear around your neck to help you not be so warm when you're out hiking. I live in Kentucky. Temperatures in the lows are typically in the 70s in the summer, and that's the overnight temperatures. A lot of times you'll go to bed and it's still in the 80s when you go to bed. Having anything that can help cool you down is great, and buffs are awesome for that. Dip them in a creek and throw them around your neck, throw them on your head. They make for a great cooling option when you're out on the trail. Needless to say, buffs have so many uses. As a matter of fact, these might have more uses than any of the other gear I'm talking about. And so I'm gonna link a video by Jeremiah Stringer right here. As you guys know, we do a podcast together, the Backpacking Podcast. Well, Jeremiah has a fantastic YouTube channel, and he has an entire video about all the uses for a buff. So make sure you guys check that out right up here. Up next is an item that some people won't like because it's electronic, but the truth is most of us, if not all of us, carry these when we go backpacking. And by all of us, I'll say 98% of us take these backpacking with us, and that is a smartphone. When I got my first computer in the mid-90s, it was 1/20th of the power of this thing right here that I carry around with me every single day. Cell phones, smartphones, they've become amazing, powerful pieces of gear that you can take with you on the trail. Obviously, you can use a phone as a phone, make phone calls, text people, but there's so much more now with the technology they have on these. You can use these as GPS units that can track where you are on a trail. The GPS chips in these are fantastic, and there are so many apps that you can use like Gaia and Onyx Backcountry and so many others that allow you to track what you're doing on the trail while using these phones. Another awesome option is this whole area right here. The cameras on cell phones today and the cameras on smartphones today are insane. High megapixels, 4K video, it's unbelievable what you can do with a cell phone. And let's just be honest, whether you're a YouTuber or not, you want to get pictures when you're out backpacking. You want to get some video of what you're seeing when you're out backpacking, whether it's wildlife or just an amazing overlook. You want to see those things, and having a cell phone with you that allows you to take those pictures and those videos is fantastic. It's a great option. Another great thing with this is if your headlamp happens to go out in the middle of the night, you forgot to charge it, or your batteries go dead, you've got the flashlight option right here on your phone, which, while not as great as a headlamp and should not be planned on being used as your headlamp when you go backpacking, it is an excellent option if your headlamp goes out to make sure that you can see in the dark. Smartphones are amazing pieces of gear, and I do call them pieces of gear because we can use these for so many things. I didn't even mention the fact that while you're hiking, if you're someone who likes to listen to podcasts, like the Backpacking Podcast, or you like to listen to music, audiobooks, you have the option of doing that with these as well. Smartphones are an incredible option to have out in the backcountry. So many uses, so many things that you can do with them. A few years back, that might not have been the case, but today, you'll rarely see anybody backpacking without one of these. And the final piece of gear that has a ton of fantastic uses is a sit pad. Whether you've got one of these $5 sit pads, or one of the Thermarest sit pads, or one of the insulated inflatable sit pads. Sit pads can be used for so many great options. Obviously, you can use it as a sit pad, something that you can sit on outside. Some people don't like bringing chairs with them when they go out into the backcountry, and they just prefer to bring a sit pad, find a log, or sit on the ground. That's their option. And that's what they like to do, and so they're fantastic for that because they give a little bit of cushion. Another great use for these is in the back of your backpack. If you're using a frameless backpack, or you're using an ultralight framed backpack, these a lot of times can come with the backpacks as the frame or as the pad between your back and the backpack. And if you don't have one of these in there, you can simply just set these down inside your backpack to give a little bit more rigidity, a little bit more support for your back in your backpack. Another great option for these, if you're a tent camper, one of the things I hate doing in the mornings is getting out of my tent and maybe putting my knee on the ground and getting crap all over my knees, or hitting my knee on a rock. These can be fantastic for just a little mat, like a welcome mat outside of your tent, so that when you get out in the morning, you got something soft to put your knees on or whatever when you're getting out, especially for front entry tents. Having something like this is fantastic, and it really does help out a ton. If you're a hammock camper, these can be fantastic to add insulation inside your hammock, especially down around your feet. A lot of times, your underquilt can slip or move, and your feet can be exposed underneath to the elements. Having something like this under your feet can protect against that. Also, it can add added insulation to it. I know a lot of guys who, when they get in their hammocks, they actually put these under their backside because their butt gets cold immediately when they get inside their hammock, and this just kind of allows for your underquilt and everything to kind of warm up so that you don't have cold butt in your hammock. Another great use for these is when you're building a fire. Oxygen is necessary when building a fire, and using these as a fan to blow on the fire is an awesome option. It makes it very easy to get the fire going, and you don't find yourself kneeling down and inhaling smoke while you're trying to get your fire going. Being able to just kind of fan this at your fire can make a huge difference and can actually do a better job than your breath can. If it's cold outside and you are a chair user, your chair can get really cold because there's nothing between your backside and the air that's blowing underneath the chair. Bringing a sit pad to put in your chair is a fantastic way to keep your butt warm when you're sitting in a chair in cold weather. There are insulated things that you can put over your chair and all of that, but if you've got a backpack that already uses something like this as the cushion for your backpack, having this already there, you can just set this in your chair and you immediately have a warmer seat when you're out in the cold. Guys, sit pads can be used for so many awesome things, and for the relatively cheap price and weight, these things can be invaluable. Definitely, if you don't have a sit pad, this is something I'd say to get your hands on. They can be used for so much. All of this gear that I talked about can be used for so many different things, but the sit pad, for the price and for the weight, the sit pad might be the MVP of this whole video. What about you guys? What items do you use out in the backcountry that have multiple uses, that you're using for 4 or 5 different things when you're in the backcountry? List those below. I'm always looking for more gear to try out and always looking for better ways to use my gear. If you liked the video, give it the old thumbs up. If you didn't like the video, give it the thumbs down. Apparently the YouTube algorithm will take either one. I still don't know what the YouTube algorithm is. Thanks for watching the video. Hope that you get out on your next trip and have an amazing adventure. And until next time, stay strong, hike long, and I'll catch you on the next go around.